Ready for one of the deepest rabbit holes I've ever really gone down, and it started today, this morning, with Jon Levi's latest video called Modern Controllers, and it stems from this Glamis Castle in Scotland, where a countess has a website called Glam is Calling, and it seems to be dispelling information to the world's elites. Now, so this castle in Scotland was built in the 900s. That's a sundial of some sort, and this castle has so many mysteries around it that it's ridiculous. There's different stories about the devil being here, captured at one point, that a monster used to live in one of the secret rooms, Frankenstein, that they were bringing beings back from the dead. There's different things that deal with communications on all different levels, people connecting with other demons, inner dimensions, having magical powers, using their mind for ancient purposes. This is an old picture that shows about the monster. So it was believed to be a haunted castle from the 900s that had a lot of secrets and a lot of royalty that lived here. And the royalty and the bloodline has continued to now, where this woman who runs that site, glamiscalling.org, is believed to be a countess. And she's even the one who, the lady in the Stairway of Heaven, like where Jimmy Page and her used to perform magic upon each other until she shattered some guy's hand. The stories run so deep. These castles are infinitely wealthy of information that nobody really knows, and it's just a really insane stuff that goes on a lot of different levels that we're going to discuss. And I'm going to say that I respect these people. I think what they're doing is nuts, but also very fascinating, and it just, I'm really in this all for expanding my mind as to the potential that this world portrays and has within it, and that includes sound frequencies, ghosts, all that kind of stuff. So I'm fascinated by this beyond belief. Again, I'm not doing this to make enemies or anything like that. I really just, it's on the web, it's public, so I'm just taking a look. And so the first one that we're going to talk about deals with Election Day in November of 2016. And her vlog goes pretty far back, but this one says, "You'll recall our instructions to the most recent camp meeting. The founders implemented a sacred tradition and it must be followed." And then it says, "Within your camp who are opposed to the election results and may be planning a major disruption. Others are likely planning to nullify your election results and may even attempt to gain your support in pursuing an alternative transition strategy inconsistent with the constitutional rules. This is all what we've been experiencing ever since November, and this is on the news every single day leading up to this impeachment trial with Mueller, all this stuff. It was known back then that this was going to happen, and this lady posted about it in November. Pretty interesting. This one, Washington. Assad's chemical attack on Khan Sheikhun must be answered. Unleash Tomahawk barrage." And about 2 days later, they did. 60 Tomahawks were released right in the same exact spot, just as orders were being given and on that site. And I'm assuming it happens in a lot of things. I believe that they have their own frequency channel where they communicate with one another, and that's where a lot of these orders are given, on frequencies that we normal people cannot access in any way, and they're probably all coded too. So this one, blah blah blah, relay Rogers Dry Lake, which I found was interesting. Durango Jubilee Tesla, I believe, is Donald J. Trump as a code name, and this is Rogers Lake, and this is in Nevada, and there's a military base right next to it, and so they do a lot of different experiments here. They do a lot of kind of almost like Area 51-y style things with strange craft, testing all kinds of things. This is interesting. Providence of the Americas, Ecuador, where this tells President Moreno that it's time to get rid of Assange. Ecuador, so a couple days later, right after that post, just like clockwork, Julian Assange got off, released from Ecuador. And all this, he smells bad, oh, he was sabotaging stuff, he was spying, he was using the center, all this stuff. They would just like make up any excuse you want, but get that guy out of there. And that's exactly what happened. Right on the dot. This is an interesting stuff. Washington Tower again, the Guyenne, they received word that there was this ship carrying a bunch of narcotics coming from Bahamas. So, what happened a couple days later? This ship was arrested, found with $1.3 billion worth of cocaine, and the ship was reportedly owned by J.P. Morgan and Chase. So 40,000 pounds of drugs, all found, and it was tipped off by this site from this lady who gave the tip-off that this was happening. So whoever it is They've got a certain kind of agenda to go with, and in some ways they're keeping things normal. They're normalizing things. In other ways, maybe they're disrupting stuff. I really don't know yet. World Governing Council supports Scott Morrison for Prime Minister of Australia. Congratulations. A couple days later, he won in a victory that they considered to be very interesting because there were a lot of thoughts that he was going to lose. So this was considered a surprise election victory. Surprise to everybody except the people in power pulling the strings. And this one's pretty interesting. United States 6th Naval Fleet, where they ordered the council, the Wetton Security Council, which is like the Windsors, they ordered this to be done, and so this happened. And they gave instructions to the Russian Navy fleet as well as the Army US. And so they followed orders. This ship went to that area, did exactly as it was told to do, in the code. Manhattan Station, Mr. Callie's important date is approaching. We'll need to implement Operation Romeo Hammer. It needs to be brutal and public. A couple days later, Frank Callie, Mr. Callie of the Italian crime family, Francesco Frank Callie of the Gambino crime family, was killed in a brutal attack. Gunned down like crazy, bullet holes everywhere. The case pretty much remains unsolved. He was killed on Staten Island just like they were told to do. And it's really intense, really sad. But, well, probably not. I mean, I guess maybe he had it coming. But this one talks about the Mariana Trench. Rest assured, the rogue fleet is no match for our monster. What, do they have some kind of crazy Pacific Rim-style monster in the Mariana Trench? That's what this kind of reveals. Something nuts there. Something's in that Mariana Trench hiding. Could even be a city. Let's see, this one. Prime Minister said to leave. Boom. Couple days later, or a month later, Theresa May resigns. She was told to by this force, by this power, and she did it. Nobody disobeys these orders. It just doesn't seem like it's possible. And you have the green light, Nepal, to launch Nepalisat-1 after April 15th. So, a couple days later, that's exactly what they did. April 18th, Nepal launches its first satellite named Nepalisat-1. All of these dates always coincide with a couple days later what ends up happening. And they're all connected. The world is controlled by some force. And this is even interesting. Antares was the name of the rocket that went up, which has a lot of ancient kind of history to it as well. And it's part of the night sky in Scorpio. It's a regular variable star, and it looks red to the eye. All kinds of interesting stuff. Maybe they know what's there. And so these two people mentioned above were talking about they knew where Kim Hyok-chol was, North Korea, and this guy apparently died 2 months earlier than the news reported. And these people knew about it, and the people that they mentioned were mediums contacting the afterworld, and that was how they got the proof that he was there and he was dead. Apparently they have control of all these realms, and they have access to them, and they've honed those skills. And this guy was executed over a failed Trump-Kim summit, supposedly, but who knows. And this was the lady mentioned there. She's said to have gone insane while spending too much time on the other side of the veil. So these people explore that stuff a lot. And this was talking about the Palatine Lights. So occasionally they have like honorariums of things that happened hundreds of years ago. So the Palatine Lights happened on Block Island, where a huge ship from Germany, I believe, came over to that area, the Philadelphia area, and just was on fire in the harbor. People claim that they all died on an island when they crash landed, but then nothing was really proven. So it's kind of a lot of hearsay and a lot of myth, but it's kind of like a ghost ship theory, and it's crazy why they mention it here. I don't know. Bohemian Grove, they wanted the influence of this guy gone because he was creating some tech problems, and they said Mr. Jones. So I believe this was Mr. Jones's father, who was in the BBC TV for a long time, and this is the guy, Rory Chellan-Jones, My Protein Beam Therapy Diary, who shortly after that post was made basically ended up quitting and saying he had Parkinson's and all this stuff. So he gave up his voice as the technology advisor for BBC News and just kind of quieted himself down. Rejoice on Mount Hermon, kiss the new dawn, for all is prepared. Shem Yaza. And so Shem Yaza was one of the chief leaders of a group of 200 rebellious holy ones, otherwise known as the Watchers, in the book of Enoch. They're related to giants, where they met at Mount Hermon and made a pact to corrupt the earth through interbreeding and sharing knowledge that humanity was not meant to know. In books of this mountain and the Watchers are an epic of Gilgamesh, the Hebrew Bible, the New Testament, the Ugaritic religion, and Mount Hermon is located in Israel and Lebanon, kind of around the border. It's a high spot that has a lot of political importance, and it was the site when Jesus' transfiguration, where he declared war on Satan and his forces 2,000 years ago. It's also the home of a lot of ancient ruins that they claim to be Roman or of the like. And these ruins are amazing. You can tell they were former Piranesi-esque masterpieces, huge buildings that could only be built by giants or other beings that we still know nothing about, but they live on. The knowledge lives on of all these things. All their technologies are still known in the underground secrets of these bloodlines, I guarantee it. But these ruins are incredible. This was definitely an old holy site. A lot of hallucinations and contact with the divines probably took place here. It's near the Tigris and Euphrates River, ancient Babylon, Mesopotamia, all those things. This place must have been a wonderland and a sacred place consisting of temples, palaces, and just amazing. Maybe even launching stuff. That whole mountain could even be a city that's covered or been destroyed. Must have been towers, communication devices to all different dimensions, all different beings, different races, different levels, different frequencies that we have no idea. No, that's a perfect spot, nice and high. Can do so much up there, and I can't even imagine, but I imagine this whole land at one point was covered with vegetation, and not as desertish as it is now. It was probably a paradise. Absolutely the garden, maybe. Who knows? But it's referred to here, Mount Hermon, and some type of new dawn was taking place. And so this is Angevin line is the strongest, and all praise Melusine. So this is talking about the Angevin line, which is around 1000, 1200, 12th, 13th century of Britain and England in that area. A royal family of a lot of power, and their bloodline continued, and these people, I think, were just these kings were just impregnating so many people and probably getting rid of those who weren't connected. And this lady also kind of refers to this a lot, the Pied Piper, but that's totally different. Here's back to this Wetton family, the Windsor family kind of power situation that they have here, and this is really intense. Take a look at this because it says who has the power in this whole situation. And the Wetton World Governing Council is probably who's behind all this that we're kind of noticing. And this is the Melusine, who was basically in the 14th century. There was some woman, or maybe a queen or something of very much importance, and she was forbidden anyone to watch her while she bathed. And the story was that when she was in water, she would shapeshift into a mermaid or a serpent-like being, and so no one was allowed to see her, and I think she killed anyone that did. But this is kind of an interesting story, and they summon her, maybe they talk to her, they connect to her, maybe they were shapeshifters, maybe they knew how to do this. This was a thing we all know, like that whole reptilian conspiracy, so much. And even they have control over the Supreme Court, telling them what to basically do. And then just in step, Ruth Bader Ginsburg and all of them except Clarence Thomas kind of declared exactly what that last vlog said to do. So they have control of a lot of different things. They're dealing with ancient deities, ancient commemorative things, all these spirits, and they're also dealing with modern day politics and politicians. Somerset Belanoff and Forgotten Frequency says that they tell people through these things through a forgotten frequency. Q, initiative Q is approved. This might be the source of Q. And then just like the forbidden frequencies, they have these things called lost lullabies and all these different sounds that I recommend you all check out because they are something to behold. They sound very interesting. You can tell there's a lot of sound frequency manipulation and different codes embedded in it, spiritual voices. They may even contact other beings. And that may be what all these old cathedrals were for, to contact other beings, other dimensions, other spirits, other realms, and learn from them. So this entire rabbit hole started by Jon Levi's latest video really just makes you think a lot about the purpose of these castles, just the controllers, the modern/ancient controllers, these buildings, the technology, the giants, the spirit world, the angels, the demons, the watchers, like all this stuff. Like one thing in this, one of the ladies, that lady I was talking about, the countess, supposedly at one point referred to the devil as like a wimp, and all the said like all this stuff. Like these people are in a whole nother world, and their bloodlines have something to do with it. You know, maybe something gets passed on, or that gene from these ancient descendants, these gods, these watchers, these demons, still exists in there, and you know, they're exploiting it. They figured out ways to utilize the magic of their bloodline in different ways, and the communication frequencies and the way that they have these sounds and these musics and these lullabies are very interesting, because you can feel something happening in your subconscious, although you don't know what it means. But then I'd like to take some of them through some sound technologies and see what I can get. But either way, you know, this all points, it's just they are in a world that's magical still, like these ancient people were. They were in it like we want to be. And you know, they use all kinds of divination and different methods of contact, and the only one that I really know of, and I guess I've used a bunch of different ones, but one of them that's kind of maybe relating to this is the tarot, because I believe that's ancient as well. But another one of those methods where you can, like a Ouija board sometimes, where it's almost like proof that there's another spirit world, that there's another realm that we know nothing about. And these people do. They've been training in it. And that's very interesting. You know, I wish it was public knowledge, although I see why it can't be. But it's very fascinating stuff, because it's all about how we explore and exploit the human potential and the potential of our minds, our bodies, and the world around us. And we have to know our history to do that, especially as now we are routinely bombarded with glimpses of history that show that angels, giants, masters of architecture, geniuses, gods, demons may have definitely been here. Now that we realize what we can accomplish as humans in our physical bodies, we see these ancient structures and things and realize we can't do them, and something else must have. So this is all just another piecing it together. It's kind of interesting to know that these people are still around, although it's a little scary as well. You know, I hope they are nice and play nice, but it's just another part of the whole puzzle that makes up this universe, and may we all be blessed and find out as much as possible about the mysteries that surround us. That's why I call this one Miracle of Mysteries. Bless you all.